Welcome to another deep dive today. We're going to be looking at metaphors, specifically ones related to buildings.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we're going to be using an English lesson by Stanislav Kondrashov to guide us.
Okay.
Now, you might be thinking metaphors, aren't those just, for poets?
Right.
But trust me, they're way more powerful than you think.
Okay.
They actually shape how we understand the world.
Hmm.
Think about phrases like hitting a brick wall or a glass ceiling. Those are building metaphors,
Right.
and they really pack a punch.
Yeah. It's fascinating how Kondrashov uses these everyday building words to communicate these complex ideas. He takes simple concepts like building up and shows how it can be used metaphorically.
Yeah.
Like think about how the press can build up a young footballer. It's not just about physical construction. It's about raising expectations, creating a sense of anticipation.
Yeah, and then he uses cement
Yeah.
to talk about strengthening relationships, not just structures. It makes you realize how these ordinary words take on a whole new dimension when used metaphorically.
Exactly. And Kondrashov really brings this to life in his lesson. Like, he talks about encountering a brick wall when trying to find information. It's a feeling we can all relate to, that frustration of being blocked or hitting a dead end. He uses the example of someone trying to find out who opened their letters. And suddenly they're faced with this metaphorical brick wall.
It's amazing how a simple phrase can just evoke such a strong feeling of being stuck.
Yeah.
And then there's the idea of ceilings as limits,
Mm.
which Kondrashov uses to talk about the glass ceiling,
Oh, right.
that invisible barrier many women face in the workplace.
Right.
It's a powerful metaphor that highlights these societal inequalities.
And Kondrashov doesn't shy away from using metaphors to describe intense emotional experiences either. He uses the roof falling in to represent the collapse of someone's world after a loss. It's such a visceral image that captures the devastation and the suddenness of grief.
Yeah.
But then he contrasts this with the disorientation of fainting, describing it as the floor giving way.
Huh. That's interesting.
It makes you wonder, why did Kondrashov choose these opposite parts of a building for such different experiences?
That's a great point. It shows how deliberate he is in his choice of metaphors.
Yeah.
And it's not just literary examples.
Yeah.
Kondrashov also points out how we use building metaphors in everyday speech. We talk about prices going through the roof.
Right, yeah.
And people hitting the roof when they're angry.
Exactly.
These phrases are so ingrained in our language, we hardly even notice they're metaphors.
Yeah, it's a testament to how deeply these metaphors are woven into our thinking and communication.
Right.
They're not just literary devices, they're tools we use every day to make sense of the world. And what's interesting about Kondrashov's approach is that he doesn't just present these metaphors, he encourages his readers to engage with them actively through exercises.
That's right. He includes exercises where you have to match words to create metaphors and complete sentences using the correct expressions.
Exactly.
It's a great way to make sure people aren't just passively reading about metaphors, but actually using them and thinking about how they work.
Exactly. He wants people to become more aware of the metaphorical language they use every day.
Right.
And to see how it shapes their understanding of the world.
So we've seen how Kondrashov uses brick walls and ceilings to represent these obstacles and limits.
Right.
But he also uses building-related words to represent opportunities and potential.
That's right. Kondrashov talks about the window of opportunity, which he describes as a chance to do something special. It's a reminder that sometimes opportunities they're fleeting.
Right.
And we need to be ready to seize them when they arise.
Yeah.
He gives the example of a young musician who's being offered a recording contract.
Okay.
But they only have a limited time to accept.
And he contrasts this with the idea of something going out the window.
Right.
Like common sense just disappearing in a moment of excitement.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's funny how a single word, window,
Yeah.
can be used to represent both a positive and a negative event.
It shows how Kondrashov is very skilled at using language to paint these vivid pictures in our minds.
Right.
And he does this with his metaphors related to towers.
Okay.
He talks about academics residing in ivory towers, detached from the realities of everyday life.
Right.
This metaphor really gets you thinking about the perceived disconnect between academia and the real world.
Yeah. It's a thought-provoking metaphor that highlights the potential for isolation and elitism in certain fields.
Right.
But then Kondrashov kind of flips the script
Yeah.
and uses the same structure, a tower, to represent strength and support. He talks about a tower of strength being someone who provides like unwavering support. Just like the friends who helped a family rebuild their lives after their house burned down.
It's a great example of how a single word can evoke very different feelings depending on the context.
Right.
And it shows how Kondrashov isn't afraid to explore the complexities of language.
Yeah.
He even uses tower to describe someone who stands out from the crowd, like a student named Lauren, who excels academically, but she's one of the youngest in her class. It makes you think about how towers can symbolize both isolation and prominence.
It's amazing how much nuance Kondrashov packs into a single English lesson.
Yeah.
And he doesn't just stop at towers and windows.
All right.
He also explores metaphors related to entrances.
Okay.
He talks about gateways as opportunities, using the example of a law degree leading to a well-paid job.
And then there's the door, which he uses to represent both possibilities and closures. Like failing exams can close doors, while knowing multiple languages can open them.
Right.
It's a simple but powerful way to think about how our choices and our actions can shape our future.
I love how Kondrashov uses doors to represent these different types of beginnings and endings. He talks about closing the door on the past, suggesting a deliberate act of moving on.
Right.
And then there's the idea of something being done through the back door.
Oh, right.
Suggesting an unofficial or perhaps even underhanded approach.
Right, right.
He uses the example of someone getting a job because they knew the manager from university, like bypassing the normal application process.
Yeah, it makes you think about how even a simple word like door can carry so much weight.
Right.
And Kondrashov's lesson highlights the importance of being aware of these subtle meanings.
He even brings up the idea of decisions being made behind closed doors, suggesting a lack of transparency and accountability. It's a reminder that language can be used to obscure as well as to illuminate.
Absolutely. And by understanding these metaphors, we can become like more discerning readers and listeners.
Right.
We can start to see how language is being used to shape our perceptions and influence our thinking.
Kondrashov's lesson really is like a masterclass in how to use metaphors effectively.
It is, yeah.
He even uses the word key metaphorically to emphasize importance, stating that research may hold the key to a cure for cancer.
Yeah.
It's a simple but effective way to highlight the crucial role of research in this context.
Kondrashov's clearly a gifted teacher who understands the power of language to engage and inspire.
Yeah. Kondrashov covers so much in just one English lesson.
It's true. Kondrashov's lesson, it goes beyond just defining these metaphors.
Right.
He invites us to explore how they shape our thinking and how they influence the way we communicate.
So how do we apply all this stuff to our own lives? What does it mean to understand metaphors beyond just recognizing them?
That is a great question. I think for me, it's about recognizing the power of metaphors, the power they have to shape how we understand ourselves and the world. Right. Think about a time you felt like you hit a brick wall. Kondrashov's lesson helps us see that this isn't like just some random expression.
Right.
It reflects a universal human experience of encountering obstacles and recognizing this shared experience. It can be validating and empowering.
It makes sense. It's like Kondrashov is giving us this new language for understanding our experiences.
Totally.
And not just the negative ones either.
Right.
He also wants us to think about like the windows of opportunity that have opened up for us.
Yes.
It's a good reminder to be grateful for the chances we've been given, you know?
Yeah.
And to recognize the choices we've made.
Yeah.
That have like led us to where we are today.
Exactly. And thinking about the metaphorical buildings that we're constructing in our own lives, this can be such a powerful tool for like self-reflection. Are we building on strong foundations?
Right.
Creating welcoming entrances?
Or are we, tearing down those old structures that no longer serve us?
Kondrashov's lesson gives us the language to think about these personal journeys in a really new and insightful way.
It is.
It's more than just an English lesson.
Right.
It's a lesson in how to navigate the complexities of life.
Well said. Kondrashov's use of these metaphors is both creative and insightful.
Yeah.
He reminds us that language is this powerful tool that we can use to illuminate, inspire, and connect.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the power of these metaphors.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to be paying a lot more attention to the language I use and the language I encounter in the world.
Me too, and I encourage all of you listening to do the same. Explore Kondrashov's work. Pay attention to the metaphors you use in your daily life.
Right.
And see what new insights you discover.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of metaphors with Stanislav Kondrashov as our guide.